It is Monday. RawMikeRichards.com. And the NFL that was, actually, you can actually throw in NCAA for that matter if we're talking about upsets. Not good. Brought to you by DKI Canada. We are broadcasting from the DKI studios at 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Here's a little double kick for you right there on a Monday. We'll talk a little what it's like to be a New York Jet fan. What's that feel like, Dave?
It's a great feeling.
There it is right there. There's one vote already for you. It's great.
It's really funny watching, because I've watched pretty much every game. Even some of the debacles, like the Cleveland game last week was horrific to watch, but I watched it. They're not a bad team. You know?
No, they're not. They're not.
That's the sad part. It's not like the defense is very good. They have a nice running attack. They have these nobody receivers that catch balls, and the tight end. Man, the tight end's like, we'll talk about him in a couple minutes, but man, he's found money. They need a quarterback. They need a little bit of a strengthened offensive line. I wouldn't really tinker much with the defense, though. It's like, damn it, I thought this was supposed to be an 0-for season.
Well, that's, if you want to tank, that's what you wanted, and I think you can kiss that goodbye. The one thing I think, though, is that is encouraging if I'm a Jets fan is what you just said. Number one, they're a team that obviously they're not rolling over. They're playing for the coach, which means if a player's coming there, and that's the balance and difficult I always find, Dave, with tanking. If you truly want to be garbage so you get that high draft pick, when that draft pick sees sort of what's out there and you're like, oh my God, that team? The one where they put the pants on backwards? You know,
exactly.
Right? And that's the one thing I'll say about even the Leafs, and people say, well, they tanked too. Well, they put on guys who weren't as talented as the guys on the other side of the ice. So they're still going to try their guts out. At the end of the day, they lose. That, to me, I have no problem with. No problem. Because now you're just sort of managing, the talent that you have. Maybe you get to see everyone you got in your farm.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, Dave, you get a draft pick. The fans, look, when that happened in Toronto a couple of years ago, fans had no problem with it. They had no problem with it at all because they realized what they were trying to do. In the NFL, it's a little tricky simply because, I don't know, there's just not that many roster spots. And to be honest, you still got to keep that job. You can't play so bad. And yet people are going to be frustrated if you're a Jets fan. But I'll tell you what, they may not, I think, by the games that they've won so far, because I think they're going to win some more. Could they be a 5-6 win team?
Yeah, unfortunately, they could be.
Yeah, which puts you in no man's land, unfortunately.
Which gives you nothing. So I think the plan of the attack, if you're looking at it from a Jets point of view, really quick, is you no longer draft that quarterback. You pursue one of the open market ones like Jimmy Garoppolo. Perhaps the Redskins can't get anything done with the Kirk Cousins, and that should be more of the focus, because you're not going to pick up the stud out of USC or UCLA, and I think there's another one in the California area. I think there's one at Berkeley as well. But you're not gonna get one of those guys because you're going to be drafting like 10th. That's not good enough. I
mean, out of Wyoming, we had that story of Josh Allen, but Wyoming's having it's really hard to predict a bona fide blue chip quarterback. I don't care who he is. I don't care what bowl game he wins. It's really hard to say that immediately translates to success in the NFL, because you've seen so many times that obviously it does not. We talked about Matt Leinart. I mean, go all the way back to Ryan Leaf, which was a tremendous implosion. But it just simply down the line, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to be that guy. Now, there are indicators that I think that Deshaun Watson is going to be a fine NFL quarterback. But you just still don't know. Can you tell me about Jameis Winston? Do you get some sort of feel about him already? Because I look at that Tampa Bay team, and look, I know they lost a lot on defense. But that performance they had against the Arizona Cardinals, But there is a long list of what deemed to be real head scratchers in the NFL. It's the kind of season that they had. But I think we move on to really what is the story of the day, David.
Story of the day, Mike Richards, is Aaron Rodgers. See you later, Aaron Rodgers. Man, I don't...
See you later, parlay as well. I went, no!
You don't usually cheer for injuries, but when it happens to Aaron Rodgers... No, I'm just joking. No, it's you're right. This is their season. I look at this division right now as it's Minnesota's to lose. And if the Lions decide that they want to actually... put a team on the field that's not going to go around spotting teams 30 and 40 points before deciding to go, hey, let's get back into it. They'll be in the mix too. But the Green Bay Packers right now, I would be shocked if they finish anything better than third place in that division.
Well, immediately I saw on Twitter people saying, Tony Romo. Tony Romo's from Wisconsin. Tony Romo. Then you hear, obviously, Colin Kaepernick, and we'll get to that story, but I would assume that because of his grievance with the NFL, you can't probably turn around and just sign him. Is he better than what's out there? You can make that argument. You could. But again, you're talking about someone coming in and learning an offense, no OTAs, no nothing, and it's basically the blueprint that Aaron Rodgers has used offensively for Aaron Rodgers. It's like borrowing someone else's custom-made clubs, Dave, and you're like, but this driver, it's only 3 feet, you know what I mean? Like, it is not as easy as people think. And so when Hundley comes in, it's Aaron Rodgers' game plan. I got news for you. Hundley isn't quite on the same level as Aaron Rodgers, so you got to do different stuff. Like, I don't know, try to block for him so he doesn't die. And it was dialed up by Minnesota in that game anyway. Even if Aaron Rodgers was playing and then he comes in, all of a sudden you find yourself having to take 2 running backs and put them in the backfield because he needs protection. There's a whole world of hurt coming Green Bay's way. And I'm also, as you can tell, insinuating that the offensive line is also under the gun as well.
It is. When you look at their schedule, too, I do see a couple W's out there. I don't really see one next week. The Saints will go to Lambeau Field and be favorites probably by about a field goal, I'm guessing. Then they got a bye week. Then it's Lions at the Bears, which is only difficult because the Bears seem to actually understand that they have the right quarterback in order. Don't let them get overworked and run the crap out of teams. I think they'll destroy the ground game as far as the attack against the Green Bay Packers in that situation. Ravens, you never know what you're going to get. Steelers is a loss. Buccaneers, man. At the Browns, maybe I'm circling that as a Packers fan going, maybe.
It's like I put the Browns as a win. I think the way the Ravens are playing, that's a possible win anyway. Possible, at least it's a 50-50.
It should be anyway. The Ravens one day will be world beaters. The next day they're going to lose to your neighbor's friends, right? I mean, and then you conclude the season. This is kind of interesting. You conclude the season with back-to-back games versus the Vikings at the Lions. That's the division right there.
Yeah, it is. It's and you know what? I'll tell you, the bigger loss, at least for me anyways, as a football fan, is I like to see the stars. I want the stars to play. And now you're telling me when I watch Green Bay, I'm going to get something by committee, a dumbed-down offense, you know what I mean? Relatively vanilla, because you're not expecting whoever it is to come in and be Aaron Rodgers, because that's impossible. So I understand even Tom Brady reached out to Aaron Rodgers, because I don't think at this point are you ever going to see like a Super Bowl Brady versus Rodgers. Maybe we never see it.
Nope.
Maybe it never happens, which is from a football fan perspective kind of too bad. But that certainly was the big news yesterday, and of course, really truly under the gun. You're now starting to talk about, at least I am anyway, in the Jets game, that reversal, the fumble, that like when I look at certain rules, like sometimes the officials are limited by what the rule actually says, Dave. And so once you go to New York, you start looking at the replays. And so the outcome of a play like that says that the defensive team at the time gets the ball back?
I don't get that.
Now, what is the thought process in somehow the offense being, if you are calling that, again, not in control on the fumble, then at some point, are you getting the ball probably where it went out? So that's got to be on the 1 inch line or whatever it is.
Basically, yeah.
How is that not the right call?
No idea.
Because there's no hand in there. There was no they hit the ball out. There was no effort by the defensive team to do something that essentially I think causes whatever you're talking about. So I don't get that. I think that's a shit rule.
This is the kind of rule that's going to go to the rules committee in the offseason going, you know what, we look like asses here.
Yeah.
We really do. I mean, for it not happening as often as it does, and then for that to be the outcome, it's like if you're just watching it from a purely football point of view and just kind of doing the ABCs of it, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I'm not, I had minor skin in the game. I'm talking pure football sense.
Yeah, football.
So whatever. I look at that as the Jets were jobbed in this game. That touchdown should have been counted as a touchdown, or at least if that's the case, then it's a different playing start for the Patriots. They deserved a little bit better than that outcome, and it's kind of too bad that happened.
Okay, so here's literally, this is my take today. So you can argue one way or the other about the stupidity of that rule, which David just said is stupid. I think we agree that it doesn't make any sense. But to me, the more you break down this game of football, the more you involve yourself with 18 different angles of camera, different levels of super high def 1080p slow-mo, that you have now taken the game out of the hands of the athletes and the guys who play it into the hands of technology. And if that's how we're going to start playing football, I don't like football that much anymore. Football isn't the same for me anymore. Football isn't a group of highly talented, motivated individuals who are the best at what they do athletically at that sport. You can't get any better than what they do. And now we have to wait, 3, 4, 5 minutes to see if in those different angles that a referee can't see and verify whether the ball was moving. Not only that, was the ball moving? Was there control after he rolls out of bounds? And at that point, did he blah, 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 blah? You're wrecking the game. The game's not fun anymore. The game is being taken away from the athletes and put in the hands of guys in New York who are supervising, as I said, the minutia of technology. The reason that we watch football, the reason that you play it, Dave, is because we're not technical people. We never will be. Most of those guys probably, when a light bulb goes, they're on the phone and they're calling Stu the light bulb guy because they don't want to be near it because they don't have to be. It is ruining Sundays. It has already wrecked, to a degree, college football. The CFL has gone to great lengths to slow down that game. That was the fastest game of all the games I just talked about. It played with the greatest pace. And now guys are throwing flags, that is coaches, because they think on the other side of the field that wasn't part of the play that there was some sort of infraction. The game is getting muddied, it's getting dirtied, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Technology is not helping the game, it's hurting the game. Now, is it a simple instant replay, whether there's a fumble and those issues, that was it caught inbounds for a touchdown? I'm for that, Dave, because you probably want to get it right. But we've gone to such an extreme that the actual ability of the referees to use their own judgment is now gone. We don't believe officials when it happens. And the game is so slow now that I think at some point I really got to question just how football is going to be played in the future. And it's not about safety. I'm not talking about safety. I'm talking about the legitimate reasons to stop a game for 3 to 4, 5 minutes and watch a ball, whether it's shaking or not. I got news for you. The way sport is played is, Dave and I both agree that the guys with the white and black stripes are going to call the game. We abide by what they're going to do. If you want good officiating, then get better officials. Then make it more regimented, more difficult to become an official at that level than sitting there, wetting us to sit there in front of our televisions or pay who knows how much money to watch an NFL game only to find out that Egbert in New York said, well, the ball jiggled according to our, not even 1080p, it's probably going to be like 2790p that they have now with little lasers and little things that are etched into the ball so the GPS satellite from space can tell us whether the fucking ball moved or not. Stop wrecking the game.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no.
I can't sit there and say anything against it.
But
it's bang on.
But you're a football guy, Dave. You know that if Russell's the referee and you go, oh, not him.
He kind of looks like a referee too, though.
He could be a referee.
He could be a referee.
One of those Weasley kind.
Yeah.
He gets a little jealous of me.
Yeah.
You know that's going to happen. And all of a sudden, boop, out comes the flag.
Yeah,
What's that for?
Yeah. It's almost like payback. Remember what you did to me in junior high?
Yeah.
It's like, Russell, we're in our 20s.
Yeah, and I never went to your junior high. Russell, do you have anything to say about that? Are you do you think you're going to be a Weasley referee? Are you offended by any of these things? You have a microphone. You can certainly.
What kind of referee would you be?
Yeah.
First of all, the style of referee, and what game would you want to referee the most?
Definitely want to referee hockey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I almost got into it, and then decided not to. But I don't know what kind of ref I'd be.
Now you would not be allowed to call Maple Leaf games, though.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
That would
I can
be
see that's a conflict of interest. Penalty shot, Matthews. He wasn't even on the ice. The national anthem is still playing. How do you call a penalty shot? And teed up. What? Yeah, you know what, and again, Dave, getting back to and Matt Dunnigan and I disagreed with this. We were at the Angelo Mosca, one of his tributes.
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, I like it. I like we got to get it right." I go, "Yeah, but for every 20 minutes when the guy is on the other side of the field," I said, Matt, I said, "I get it if you're going up, it's a touchdown, it's a call that's going to change the game, but looking on the other side of the field where you think it was beyond 5 yards and they bump and you're like, that's pass interference."
Nothing bugs me more than watching a CFL game where it comes down to a close play at the end, and part of the strategy on the defensive side of the ball is we're throwing the flag to maybe get the call, because that's what they do.
Because
Because
you're rolling the dice, and what does it do if you're wrong? You lose timeout or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it.
It's
such a minor. It's such a minor penalty to take. For the opportunity to erase a big play.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're watching rawmike.richards.com. Thanks for subscribing to the YouTube channel. I see a lot of people did that over the weekend. We hope you do it more often. We've got some great news actually coming up this week, and yet another announcement, because I think every week we're going to – that's the goal.
Announcement a week?
Yeah, cool announcements, and we've got one tomorrow that's going to be great, and I think you're going to be happy with it. And there's all kinds of – and tomorrow you'll find out how some of these things that we're doing, even though right now, it's kind of small, how it's working its way kind of in its own community, which is kind of cool, which is why we wanted to do this in the first place. So I've got some good news about that tomorrow. But also subscribing to the YouTube, or sorry, the website itself, so rawmike.richards.com. Make sure that you do that. At some point, we're going to be able to implement, if you're part of the Army, if we have giveaways, which we really haven't done to this point, but I can see that that's coming down the road, you want to make sure that you're part of the Raw Mike Richards Army. That way, if you belong, you can win. If you don't belong, no winnie. One
of the first prizes under consideration is that sweater Russell's wearing. So we might be giving that away next week.
Well, Russell's keep the camera on, David, and why don't you come over, and because our 3-shot is gone today, correct?
Yeah, it's not there.
So let me get here. Let's get me some sexy music here.
There you go. See? Perfect.
Look at that. It's
and it comes complete. It will not be ironed, and it's probably going to be in like a paper bag.
And the real cool thing is it smells like Ernie Whitt.
It does have that distinction of Ernie Whitt smell.
Yeah.
That's cool. Ernie Whitt may have worn that at one time.
Ooh, I don't know. Well, maybe a long time ago. Not now.
So subscribe. And you could be part of our first giveaway.
And win. He walks away.
He's thinking to himself, I'm not giving away this sweater.
Oh, by the way, have you seen Gotham yet and the new girl on there?
I have, yes. It's
I like
outstanding
that.
season.
You know I like that.
When you sent me the text about which
I didn't give it away.
As a friend, I appreciate it, because I have other friends out there that are complete jerks.
Spoiler alert, people.
It's like, I never got a chance to watch it. I watch it on Friday morning sometimes. You know what I mean? And
no one watches it when it's actually on.
No,
very few people do.
The only thing I really watch live is sports. That's it.
Yeah, me too.
Because I don't have time for the commercials. I don't have time to and plus, when we're talking about what we talk about on a daily basis, there's only so much time in a night where there's a game on, or I'm writing something on sportsinteraction.com, or I'm getting ready for this show the next morning. So it's I can't watch Gotham. I will watch Gotham on Friday at lunch, something of that nature. So,
but Jim Gordon's done well on that show with the women.
And he continues to year after year. And
I wonder if he's in that on the casting. No, I don't. Did you see that one out there? You mean the girl serving sandwiches? Yeah. She's Falcone's daughter now.
She's the next one.
Yeah, she's
Falcone's daughter's cousin now.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
She's a new villain. What? She's the hottie. Okay, so that's not even a thing. It's not even. Why would that be scary? But no, Gotham still watch. Fear the Walking Dead, so I watch that stuff. I stayed up too late, probably trying to watch that thing too.
I have not. Well, I have not gotten into that. I saw though.
But there's head chopping and zombies, so
so you're
I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. There's if you like HBO documentaries, there's a George Michael one coming up in a couple weeks. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. George Michael, Greek.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, dude.
I'm just saying, yeah. So
what's his real Greek name then? Your family?
I don't have a clue. We were talking about it.
What's
yesterday.
Michael? Mike something though.
Mihaly.
Mihaly.
Yeah, Mihaly. Yeah, Mihaly Richards. Ra Mihaly Richards.
Yeah.
Might do well in the Danforth.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mihaly.
New name for the show.
They're going, hey, you remind me of George Michaels. No, I don't.
No,
I don't.
No, you don't want to be. You don't want to be like George Michaels, but George Michael was very good at what he did.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. That first Wham song.
I didn't hang
and
out.
this video when they're like, "Wake me up," I'm like, I'm not watching you.
I didn't hang out with him or anything.
And then there was the other guy. He was the John Oates.
Yes, he was.
The dark-haired guy.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I forget his name, but yeah, he was even worse than John Oates.
Way worse.
Like,
way worse.
He probably looked up to John Oates and said, "I want to be like that one day," but you're not.
Yeah, I'm less than John Oates. You know, I remember one of the first times, I'm also fascinated with the Latina side of things.
Yes, you are.
And I'm in university in London, and we go, and I somehow crossed with these people, meet them. They're going, oh, we're going to have this big meeting of all the Central American refugees.
Yes.
At this, a church sponsored this thing, and now we all live in London. Do you want to come? Yeah, I want to come. So I get there. There's a drum set there. And they're trying to play La Bamba. I go, no, you play it like this. So I'm sitting there hamming. It's a very easy song. La 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 blah blah blah. So we play La Bamba, and then there's all these, and there are a couple of cuties there. There's a couple of cuties.
You take advantage in that party,
and
eh?
I could hear them. I didn't speak Spanish the way I do now, but I could hear blah 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 and something about Jorge. I said, Jorge, Mikel, Wham, it's the Wham, como la Wham, el grupo Wham. I'm like, oh, I see what you're saying. Do you think I look a little like George Michaels? And the girl goes, no, the other one. All right. I'm calling the green card people, okay? You're all out. You're all gone. You're especially you, Consuela. You're out. Speaking of being out, Dave, if we take a look at, here's some panic music.
Panic music, yes.
What are we going to do? There's some good acting. I'd be in Dave's science fiction movie where I'm the other doctor or something.
That's good.
I'm Gina Gershon's assistant.
That would be a very, very good position to have.
And what was your line again? Because this music would work.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go again. Because I want to put you know what, we're going to cut that other first scene that we did because we never put it on. We never put it on the web. We got to do it. Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. So
I totally forget.
What's the movie called again?
Category 7, End of the World. That's what it's called.
Okay, here we go. Category 7, End of the World. Take 4. Speed. Music. Action.
Miss Carr, with all these devastations around the world, what can FEMA do to help the people that are begging for our assistance at this time?
What was the question again? That's a long question.
I don't remember my question.
I'd be the assistant going, she can't answer that question. Nobody can.
See, that's the right way of saying it, too.
Yeah.
And then the music would actually go up. There you go.
Nobody can. Ah! Yeah, Pee-wee. No one's going to save us. I know. Gina Gershon can just by wearing her thong and showing us her legs. I have another question.
Was that the assistant
talking?
talking?
All right, that's the, okay, now, all right, here we go. Let's get rid of the panic music. It's just freaking.
No, there is a good panic music. There's some good panicky teams right now.
Okay.
I'm looking at you, Oakland Raiders. What the hell are you doing? Oh, my. I don't want to get into my hateful hate right now, but.
But who panics the most right now?
Oh.
Okay, so I've got to put.
That's
of those
tough.
that had a season and maybe don't, so I'm putting Green Bay first.
Yeah, Green Bay just because of the situation at quarterback and even with the signing, because they're going to go out and sign somebody this week, maybe even as early as today. They're going to look for something. And no, it's not you, Jeff George, although he probably would be a better option than what they have. Green Bay Packers would be number 1 on my list, quickly followed by the 2-4 Oakland Raiders. It's been dismal.
Yeah.
I knew this would be a tight game because the Chargers play the Raiders really well. 3-point spread in that one, by the way, if you had the Chargers. But the Raiders are sitting there going, something went wrong here. And I'm going to throw another team in there, even though they're 2-3, which isn't a bad record, but are you sweating it if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because your 2-3 record?
Tampa Bay to me is should be in panic mode.
And you're in last place, and the team's ahead of you. I don't think you beat them. I don't think you beat the Saints. I don't think you beat the Panthers.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm not even sure if you beat the Falcons, and the Falcons have their problems too, like losing to the Dolphins.
Yeah,
there.
we didn't even get to that one yet. Okay, here's a couple of teams that I think are panicking, and it's your fault. Like the reason I put Green Bay at the top is because they had the vision, they had the players, they stuck to their game plan, their coaching staff was, everything was going great. You don't have a sufficient backup, like a lot of teams don't. And therefore, that's a season that was here and now it's plummeted. There's others that should be panicking, but I'll be honest, look in the mirror. If you're the New York Giants, what did you think you had coming into this season? So even without Odell Beckham, who of course is their best player, but what do you really have? And I'm going to, Denver game aside, I look at the Giants like you should be nervous. I also take a look at a team like, who else I put in that category?
I'd throw the Baltimore Ravens in that
Baltimore
category.
Ravens are junk.
Yeah.
Are junk.
It should have been much better. They had tons of opportunity to do so much better than what they are, and they weren't a great team to begin with. You know what I mean? Like if they hit 9 wins, it probably would have been check marks all around. And considering they're 3-3 and maybe could have been, I don't want to say 4-2, but probably 4-2. Things would have looked a lot different. I would have thrown the Steelers in that conversation until yesterday's game.
They all of a sudden, bam, they're the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Exactly. But you know what? When they play the Cincinnati Bengals next week, that better not be a letdown game.
Well,
we've seen that before.
Because in Cincinnati's going to be ready. Cincinnati will be ready. The Atlanta Falcons, I mean, it's not bad enough you did what you did in the Super Bowl. I mean, look, Tom Brady's amazing comeback, granted. There's no way you should be losing that football game. But yesterday, against Miami, pathetic. And you should be panicking because you're garbage.
Yeah, that's well said. And at home as well. And you lose back-to-back games to the Bills and then the Dolphins in Atlanta. That's got to be really, really difficult to handle if you're a Falcons fan. Outside of that, a lot of missed opportunities continue to happen to the Detroit Lions. That at 3-3, it looks like a decent record, but really that might be one of the worst 3-3 records around. I don't really see any other disappointments out there because I'm expecting the Los Angeles Chargers to be what they are, not very good. The Bears are not very good. San Francisco not very good. So there's no panic amongst teams that had the chance.
I also think too, if we're talking about the panic, who are the teams who feel real comfortable with what they're doing? Who's comfortable?
Comfortable.
I think it's strangely enough because at the beginning of the season I wouldn't have said this. Bengals. I think the Bengals actually right now are kind of comfortable with where they're at and what they're doing.
Considering the start they made.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Considering a terrible start, I think they're probably comfortable. The Buffalo Bills are comfortable.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills are comfortable. I think the Washington Redskins are comfortable. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are like sky high.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point too. Philadelphia would definitely be on that list.
I'd even though they lost to Philadelphia, I'd say that there's more comfort than panic with the Carolina Panthers.
They're okay with themselves. Yeah. Seriously, they are.
I think there's a lot of positive happening with the Saints because it looks like they're starting to get a little bit of defense, even though you look at it and they allowed 38 against the Lions. A lot of that was garbage time and catch up. But in the first half, the Saints were actually well. A couple defensive scores, fumble in the end zone recovery. That was good. Comfortable with themselves. And it's quickly becoming probably my second favorite team. The Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a story that cool. I do like it. I put them in that category. I also think that the Houston Texans, as bad as they've had some issues, and of course no J.J. Watt and Marsalis.
Whitney Marsalis.
Whitney Marsalis. You're pleased with what you've seen from Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
And this is a team that when they get together, you know what? The Texans, you're comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable. And considering what you have around you in the division, because you have a Titans team that has a hurting quarterback not doing very well. You have a Colts team that Andrew Luck hasn't played, with yet. So
it looks like he's
getting close though.
Yeah.
He's getting really close. And then you have a Jacksonville team which which, by all accounts, probably should have taken advantage of a good opportunity this weekend
I agree.
and didn't really do it. But they're still 3-3. That's not bad. That's not the Jacksonville we know of yesterday, because the Jacksonville of yesterday was 1-5, not 3-3. So there is some improvements. The defense looks good. Leonard Fournette is my rookie of the year so far.
Yeah.
So I look at that and go, man, okay, they got something happening there. Just change up the uniforms because you look like garbage. I mean, honestly, yeah, you put that on the field and then you wear that. It's like kind of like you go to a wedding wearing a Hawaiian T-shirt. That's a Jacksonville Jaguars team.
God, those the uniforms and the worst helmets in pro sports.
Well, decide what you want to do. Do you want to go full black or full gold? Don't go half.
No.
I mean, the only team that had success going half was Eric Lindros's Oshawa Generals, where they went the half red, half blue, and that was in the 80s. Okay, late 80s, early 90s, and I understand that. But today, pick a color and go with it.
Other stories, and of course, Colin Kaepernick's filed a grievance under the latest collective bargaining agreement against the NFL owners. Now, this is a guy named Mark Garagos. This is not the union. He did not go the union route of this. He's not going through the Players Association. He's done it differently with this guy he says he represents the stars.
Yep.
So, including like Michael Jackson has used this guy. I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to hear. But I don't know. So he is filing. So he's demanding some sort of arbitration. That's what he wants, and so it's in respect, I guess, to a retaliation of his initial kneeling. I just don't know if at this point, when you have that kind of complaint, because so many others have done it, like you're telling me. So if that seemed as collusion, if one of those guys who's taken a knee isn't hired, is he going to look at that as, well, okay, well, this is why I'm not working, is because I've been part of this group that also was doing that.
Bingo.
You open up a really sort of messy can of worms, I think, when you do that. I don't know as well if this is the route that he wants to take, and I have no problem with him being basically a social activist, if you want to put it that way. In fact, you might look at him now and his actions and say to yourself, Dave, of all the people that have kind of joined this movement, he really was the start of it, when no one else was really doing it. So in that case, maybe your true calling is to continue and follow through with that path in your life. When this happens, it just reeks of, well, I know I can get some money out of this somehow. I don't know. It made me feel like, you're talking about a guy who, is he good enough to be on an NFL roster? Well, certainly on a roster. If you're seeing Hundley play yesterday, then you're saying, yeah, there must be some room. But then you've got to start making this argument. And how is that? It's going to be so hard to prove that that's the reason that he hasn't been hired. Like, you can't just say, even if you work for NBC or CBS or Fox or ESPN, that he's good enough. So you can tell then another business that Russell has to be hired. That I am telling you, and a court is going to tell the NFL and their ownership that he has to be hired. How can you do that?
You can't.
How do you do that?
That's not possible.
Like, even if it is, good luck trying to prove it, because I just think that if he were at the kind of caliber, because remember, it started to go south for him while he was still playing, and he started to float, Dave, and then the mark on him was, can you not read a defense at the professional level? Because the football IQ started to come into it. How then, like, it's not like he won a Super Bowl and then can't play. It's not like he went to a conference championship and can't play. He's been a part of that, but it went south on him. So now you're debating, if you're Garagos, saying, yes, but he's good enough to play. And an NFL guy can say, no, well, I don't want to pick him up.
Yep.
I'm not interested in him.
Like, for example, yesterday when Aaron Rodgers went down, there was a lot of talk, and there was this picture floating around social media of Colin Kaepernick wearing a Brett Favre jersey in front of Lambeau Field saying, this would be a perfect fit. It's like, Colin Kaepernick does not fit the offense the Packers currently have under Aaron Rodgers.
No.
So you sit there, it just doesn't work like that anymore. Tony Romo has a better opportunity to guide a Packers offense, which I don't think he will be. But
and neither's Brett Favre, just so you know, in case. And in fact, Ed Werder still had to make a statement saying, by the way, Brett Favre says, no, I'm not going out there. I mean, that's what a thrill for him at 47 to go back out there and try to save that team with a bad offensive line.
With a terrible
Good
offensive
luck with
line.
that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I mean, is Colin Kaepernick good enough to be a backup quarterback somewhere in the NFL? In my opinion, from a guy that has not been in a general manager's chair in the NFL,
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Sure.
I would say yes.
I don't disagree with that.
But there's probably a small handful of teams, and if you have a developing young quarterback or if you have somebody in place, well, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work out.
You're going to have a tough time, as I said, from a legal standpoint, trying to say that this guy is good enough because who are you? So your evaluation according to who? Because they would show on the other side, I am sure, that they're going to look at his last appearances and go, why do we have to hire this person? Like, based on a football skill set, why do we have to hire him? And can a court now, and this is where, and we'll talk, maybe Jeff Manishin, we'll get him on. You see that Ezekiel all of a sudden could almost immediately have this suspension. It's getting so ugly. But here's another layer to this. Because he's gone the route of hiring private representation, it's not through the NFLPA. So the NFLPA, the Players Association, they're not a part of this. This is a separate and private suit, as he has hired private representation. If you're trying to make it for the betterment of all, why are you not going through the Players Association? They found out about it the same way that we did. All of a sudden, this announcement has been made. The grievance, once again, will be collusion. And I'm not so sure. I think like even the president might be somehow named in this. I don't think that's a good idea. Whether you believe it to be true or not, I probably am not throwing the president of the United States in there. Although, in this day and age, Dave, who knows? This world is getting so crazily out of hand. Who knows what to expect? But I think for Colin Kaepernick, I can see if he wants to go forth with collusion. But if I'm him, I would have hired the Players Association. I would have been part of the brotherhood than going out and hire Michael Jackson's ex.
Yeah, separate and totally its own entity, and not what the league you want to kind of return to. Some names out there, we talked about two of them. Another one that's probably hoping for a phone call is a Robert Griffin III. I don't know if he
But
fits.
see, his health-wise, I don't know.
I don't think he fits that kind of offense they have. And then they're looking at some younger quarterbacks like Joe Callahan is another quarterback that might get an opportunity with Brett Hundley, because Huntley's more than likely to start against the Saints, considering they faced them in 6 days.
See, I want the Callahan guy just because it sounds like Dirty Harry. His name was Callahan. And so every time he gets wild, he's like, God damn it, Callahan, you're reckless and you're wild. Says who? I thought we were supposed to win games. Your team is shit. Callahan! Like that's what I would want.
So those are some of the options, but there isn't a quarterback pool just waiting for people to, so unless they acquire via trade, which I guess is an option, maybe the Patriots are dangling a Jimmy Garoppolo out there and not wanting to just lose him for nothing in the offseason.
I always think of Janine Garofalo. Just so when you say that name, I think of her, which is not good for her.
Yeah, and not very athletic.
No, not that I think.
Although she probably looks better with a football helmet on, right?
Watching rawmike.richards.com, listening on the podcast as well, brought to you by DKI as we broadcast from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. And is Toronto feeling good these days? Well, I guess this is Maple Leaf music. I don't know why.
Is that what it is?
This. Again, more dramatic and scary music today. That's what we're doing today.
You got a theme happening here.
Well, if this was the music that was being played at the start of overtime in Montreal, I'd get it. Because the moment it went to 3-on-3, I said, this game's over.
Yep.
It has to be. I don't think they played necessarily a particularly good game. That is the Maple Leafs to start. And I think if you're a Leaf fan, you're going, come on. What do you like? The moment Montreal scored first, I thought, oh, boy. Because this is going to start a lot of talk, and the We Love Frederick group may all of a sudden be taking those cakes
right there
and throwing them out the window. But it was roast beef's hero. Oh, yes. Austin Matthews to the rescue, scores an OT, ends sort of the misery. But you know what? As Leafheart, who we have from time to time representing the show, he said, take the Leafs. He goes, and then freedom will be yours.
He did, eh?
Yes, he did.
Now, is he gonna come on for most predictions, or is he just gonna kind of pick and choose?
Yeah, I think he's gonna pick it. But he's now 3-1.
Okay.
He lost the New Jersey game.
Ah.
Yeah.
He must have been pissed
He
about
was,
that.
and you don't want to get Leafheart mad.
No, you don't.
But
Does he have a say in what's happening in Washington tomorrow?
Well, I guess we'll have to find out, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stick around tomorrow.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of that, we'll talk about this tomorrow too. I'm going to send Russell out to punch the first sports broadcaster in the city that goes out and makes the analogy of if the Leafs win, it makes up for last year's playoff.
They're not saying that, are they?
They got a little bit of payback.
No.
Because there's always some doofus out there that
well.
says, and they got some payback for that 6-game loss to the Washington Cap. No, they didn't.
Here's another one.
Ever.
So they've exorcised those demons.
See, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
No, they don't. No. Trust me. Do you think if you're a Leaf fan, are you going to forget that Game 7, the last 10 minutes of that third period, that meltdown? You just don't. Those are the kinds of losses that eat you alive forever.
Yep.
And if they don't, either you're not a fan or you've never been in a situation like I just don't know. That will never leave what you did. And for the Leafs right now, this is a brand new team. I wouldn't be thinking about any of that. Like, why would you compare this current season and this particular roster to what's happening in Washington? I don't give a shit. Do you, Russell? I mean, I don't even see why that would even be something you even want to talk about.
No, I just care about what the Leafs are doing. Like any storyline about last year's playoffs, the same thing that you guys said. Like Washington was the better team that year. There's no exercising demons. It's not like the Leafs collapsed in the playoffs last year. This is just simply the first game since they played each other in the playoffs.
Here's exercising demons. So years ago, when Ottawa would have these, with Jacques Martin, they'd have these great, and they'd meet the Leafs in the playoffs.
Yep.
And the Leafs would beat them every time. When Ottawa finally moves on and beats them, that's exorcising demons.
Yes.
Because it's year after year, and it's the same bloody team that you meet. It's the way that I think some teams would feel if they beat New England in a playoff game. Like, for instance, when it was always, what team would I put in there? So if it's the Colts, if it's Peyton Manning,
yep.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
But the one series in a team historically in Washington that the Leafs generally there's not really a feel for it in the playoffs. Losing to Washington Capitals, there's no feel to it.
Nope. But somebody will say that. Somebody will say tomorrow on a broadcast. And remember last year when they lost to the Washington? Well,
It'll be payback. We should record it. We should try to record as much as we can. Find out what knob. Well, here's a little payback for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And now let's go to the newsreader who makes $27,000 a year and can't pronounce pronunciation. Yes, I can. Fuck off. You're a dick. Loser. And now the weather. I swear to God, some of those news shows I can't watch
What broadcast
anymore.
was that? What station was that?
Are you now not hiring people actually in broadcasting and they're like on Skype or something and they're like, I'm here in front of City Hall.
I see that so often.
It's shit.
I see that so often.
They're just hiring kids out of like Ryerson.
100%.
No offense, Ryerson. And they're going, I'm Russell Graham here in Ottawa. Shut up, Jimmy. You don't know everything. That's what it feels like. It's some sort of Seneca or Mohawk or
and big thumbs up while we're on the topic. Big thumbs up to all those news directors out there that think sports shouldn't be part of a 6 o'clock report. You guys are some of the worst people in the industry.
And we know who you are, worst people.
Just saying. It's like cutting sports, cutting this. It's like, no. No, a sports package should be part of every single newscast, even if you're talking about little Jimmy at some high school event.
Well, they killed all the local stuff too. They killed all in local sports in a lot of cities and smaller towns. It's where local people would advertise because guess what? It didn't cost as much, and there was that tie to community.
Bingo.
So if little Russell Graham was the T-ball star of the week, brought to you by Hank's Meats, that's kind of the connection they have. They killed all that. Yeah. I'm looking at
brutal.
Yeah, that's what Bell did. That's basically what Bell did. Is they went through cities like Calgary, and these aren't small. They hired one back. I think Glenn Campbell got his job back. A lot of them wiped out. Ottawa was completely wiped out. Places like I think Windsor and London, Barrie, London, all gone, which is a shame. Well, so where do you get your next broadcasters? I got to be honest, they don't care. They are not caring about where they come from because they feel that you're going to watch,
Bingo.
whoever sit there.
When
and
you're sitting there in Barrie, you wanna talk about the Barrie Colts.
you want to see the Colts.
You don't care what happened on the national sports scene with the Leafs doing this, or if you like the Red Wings because of geography reasons, or the Buffalo Bills. You want to know what's happening with the Barrie Colts and
Maybe there's a good high school basketball team or football team.
And that's see, because when I went through the ranks and I lived in Saskatoon for a while, it was Blades hockey and WHL. I mean, that's what the community wants, and all these small towns throughout Canada, not just here in Ontario. Sports is a major player in a town's spirit development.
Of course it is.
Just
it's community day.
It really is, and it's just kind of too bad that people don't look at that from that perspective and think that no, they want to know about this. It's like no, you clearly don't know the pulse of where you live if that's how you truly feel.
They don't care. They don't care because it's going to cost more money than it would for some guys centralized at TSN Sports Center putting together some vanilla package together that is very generic. It talks about the bigger national stories and has nothing to do with Brandon, or it has nothing to do with Kitchener or London. They just simply don't care about you, and they are then assembling these things to put together so you guys will swallow it. And guess what? They get away with it. Yeah. Because people really, at times, don't get that upset about those. Because, look, there's a lot of stuff going on in your life that maybe you're not upset that you don't see the high school team. But it's just sad that has gone, that way, that it's going to be really a memory when you're going to have local sports. Because the one thing that I notice a lot, and they're very good at it, is south of the border. It doesn't matter how small that town is.
You're telling me.
They're having the local TV guy out there, and he's showing you the top 5 high school football teams or basketball teams or girls rugby. It doesn't matter what it is. They're really good at it because it's important to them. And people would complain. Trust me, in the States, if all of a sudden Central High School has the best quarterback who might sign with UBuff or whatever school, Ohio State, they want to know how their guy does each and every week.
Completely.
But that's important to Americans, and that's why I say there is a difference. People say, geez, that sounds anti-Canadian. I go, no, it's just culturally that we're different that way. For instance, and this is where some woman got real mad at me, and I said that we're regional people. I go, okay, so when your hockey team is out, so when the Leafs are out, you would watch a great matchup between, I don't know, maybe Philadelphia and Washington, which when those guys get together in playoffs, sometimes it's crazy town. But if you're in one of the towns in Canada that doesn't have your team in it, you may or may not watch. And if you don't think that's true, get a load of a couple of years ago, Dave, when there were no Canadian teams in the playoffs. How much hockey did you watch? And be honest. Where the difference in the States is, it doesn't matter if your city's out. It doesn't matter if the university you went to or your kids go to, March Madness comes on TV, it is the number one thing for 12 hours a day for the entire 2 weeks. That's just how it is because that is what is important to them. If you want to change it, well, I guess that's up to you to let people know, and that's a hard thing to do. I mean, how important, we complain about sometimes when our amateur athletes don't do well. Are your kids in that particular sport? Is there money set aside, do you think, in your community to make sure that you have an excellent volleyball program? Odds are it's not. And that's just the difference. It's not that it's wrong. It's just that what Canadians and how we perceive ourselves when it comes, we're very localized, which means if you're from a given market, you might be more interested in the Barrie Colts than you are the Winnipeg Jets.
Yep.
It's just who you are. And guess what? You're right for wanting to be a part of that community. It's just different because in the States, if you're in the middle of Iowa and your local team or university, depending where you are, is out, if there is a big football game on the weekend, you're still going to watch it. Here, we don't. Once locally we're finished, Dave, I think most Canadians are out. To me, that's just the difference. Not right or wrong. And look, I've lived in both places. I've been to school, had to go to school in both places. And I can tell you that the difference is almost staggering. For instance, when you take history, so I'm in 8th grade. What kind of history do you have? We're like, what do you mean? Well, is there European or no? It's American history.
Sure it is.
I mean, that's just what they do. They don't know at some point. Now, in high school level, because I said that was 8th grade, but there just is a difference. I don't really get all pissy about how much greater someone else is than somebody. And I think that's our problem, Dave, is everybody seems to think that everyone is superior and that your idea, and only your idea, is right. And that's why on Twitter and you see on social media, if you don't agree with someone, it goes back to that conversation we had beforehand where they call it the Godwin effect. At some point when someone just completely stops agreeing with you, that other person's Hitler. The argument comes back to Hitler. You're Hitler. Yeah, but we just started off talking about jelly salads. Exactly. Hitler. Because at some point someone didn't agree with someone else, and so now everyone's Hitler. Because this world right now, Dave, is I still say is the angriest I've seen it in. So I'm 54. In my 54 years, I don't think I've seen the planet this scary.
It's really scary.
This
at
fragile.
All different parts of it too. It's not just like one central area where you're like, oh, we're worried about the Middle East. Well, as usual. No. It's the North Korea thing. It's here. It's in the States. It's within states of the states.
Well, people's rights. I mean, it seeps. Obviously, those feelings have crept into sports. Thus, the kneeling. Thus, the legal action taken by Colin Kaepernick. That is his feeling, and it's his right to do so. But because of these rights, so it's okay then for neo-Nazis to have a march. Well, if you say no, and I understand why you'd say no, because morally and ethically, we're like, why would you even tolerate that sort of ideology is okay? But if that's okay for this one, then it has to be okay. That's kind of how the freedom of speech is. And guess what? In Toronto, apparently, a neo-Nazi rally is going to happen. Neo-Nazis.
Brutal.
Look, you think of going, so what are your parties like? Like, when you guys get together to have board games and stuff, like, is it... Like,
don't know if they're doing board games.
Like, if you lose, boy, what happens there? And can anyone play? Like, what's that Monopoly board look like? You know what I'm saying? You just may not want to get involved. But that's the world that we live in, and I don't know how we got onto that.
No.
But as you'd like to see the world get along, but I guess the reality is that no one has learned a thing because nobody does. Taking a look at the
Major League Baseball. Let's go.
Oh, you want to Major League Baseball?
Yeah, let's wrap this thing up with Major League Baseball because there was a game yesterday, a game tonight, and a couple commanding leads that look like this might be tough for opposition to kind of break this down and get back in it, but anything's possible, right?
Okay, the one story that I think is interesting as we went into Major League Baseball, there was a couple of question marks. One for me was the Dodgers. They had not played good baseball. For the lack of a better term, they I don't know if they looked disinterested, but they were such heavy favorites at some point in the season. You thought, this is not only the sexy pick, this is the right pick. I'm going to put some money on the Dodgers.
Yep.
Well, they're looking like if you did that, you could be in the money.
Yeah. 5 games in a row, they sweep away the Diamondbacks, and now they have a 2-0 lead on the Cubs. They win yesterday 4-1. Rich Hill looked brilliant, even though he didn't really last that long because they pinch hit for him in the 5th inning. But you know what? That series goes back to Chicago. We'll see what the Cubs are kind of made of. But the way this Dodger roster is kind of built top to bottom, I would be surprised if the Cubs actually get more than a win or two out of them, and this series could be over in about 5 games.
Do you think that regardless of what happens with the Yankees, does Joe Girardi, do you think he survives?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
I think he does, and I think the Yankees are probably going to split this upcoming 2 games in New York, and we'll see what happens after that. But man, acquiring Justin Verlander for the Astros may have been the move of the year.
You know what? It might be
what it means.
You know, I didn't overblow it and say the move of the decade. But when I think of sometimes of who you pick up and for what they do, even if you want to call it a rental player, like how many times does that guy resonate with you almost immediately that this is going to be a great pickup? Because it's not Justin Verlander of like 4 years ago, Dave. So, you know, depending on what you think you're getting, but the moment that he went to Houston, I think a lot of baseball people, and again, a guy who's casual baseball at best.
Yep.
Myself, I'm thinking that's the move.
That is the move.
That's the move.
And they paid a hefty sum for him, but you know the great part is if you're an Astros fan, you have them for 2 more years after this, and they legitimately have 2 top of the line aces going 1 and 2 in whatever order you want to put them in because they're both legitimate number 1s. and it's probably the reason why the Astros are going to be punching their ticket sooner than later, and have a great shot at a World Series championship. So,
if you're the Cleveland Indians, is there any need to panic? Because it was a weird season. They were terrible. They got off to a horrible start. They looked garbage. But everyone knew that they had the potential. Then they go on a historically unbelievable run, and then they are just they fade in the playoffs. With that pitching staff, it's shocking.
I look at that and going, man, I mean, that window, I think they have another year legitimately at the top. But after that, you got to start paying some of these guys. And, Cleveland isn't a New York or a Los Angeles of Major League Baseball where they're going to be able to shell out money. But, man, I think that was an epic meltdown that they lose 3 straight to the Yankees, where they had the Yankees on the ropes and they couldn't put them away. And considering that was my favorite pitching staff out of all the playoff teams, that's the most shocking part of it. And the way the Yankees beat up Corey Kluber in Game 5 is something that, this upcoming offseason, this guy's going to be thinking about. Any Indians fan is going to be thinking about, and something that next year doesn't matter to an Indians fan because they're already fast forward into October, and they better be there in October, and they better make amends for what they did this year.
Yeah, and again, as Major League Baseball proves, whatever you think is going to happen, it just doesn't. People say, well, the Dodgers were picked to do what they're going to do. Yeah, but there was a drop-off in there, and that's the one thing about a baseball season, Dave, that is unlike to me any other. It's just so many bloody games. How many games does it take to actually be consistent? Well, it's I guess what Sparky Anderson said years ago. You win a third, you lose a third. It's what you do with the other third.
Yeah.
And so that would be interesting. What do you want to see as the matchup? What is the World Series to you in terms of matchup?
Dodgers Astros. I think it's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit of a, you look at it and you go, man, I hope there's some fight back with the Cubs or the Yankees, but I don't think there is going to be. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to power up pitchers versus pitchers. It's probably going to be a very, very good, World Series. It's not the World Series Major League Baseball offices want to have, because they've been rooting Yankees-Dodgers probably since the start of...
almost any other league office. It's like, who do you want? I don't know. Do we have a team in New York, a team in Los Angeles? That's what we want.
That's what we want.
That's what we want.
And that's exactly, and considering the history of a Dodger-Yankee series, I've only seen one of those in my life, and I hope I see another one, but it's not happening this year.
Well, there are other upsetting things, too. We talk about Russell, and sometimes what we sometimes know of his private life, which is very, very little.
Yep.
But I secured a tape of a date that he had this past weekend.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How'd you get that?
Well, his mom helped me with a little bit because she was concerned about his treatment of women. And do we have that tape? I know.
She was, eh?
Yeah, I know. Let's play that tape. Let's hear it.
I'm telling you right now.
What do we have to do here?
Nothing. I'm going to take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink. Can I stay on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you. I promise.
I know.
You're embarrassing me.
I'm sorry. I cannot. No, yesterday was a kind of aggressive for me.
I know.
I need to know a person to
I
be
won't
touched.
do a thing.
I don't want
Do a thing, please. I swear I won't. Just sit with me. Don't embarrass me in the hotel. I'm here all the time.
I
Sit
know,
with me.
but
I
I don't
promise.
want to.
Please sit there. Please. 1 minute.
No,
I
I
ask
can't.
you. Go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want
Go
to.
to the bathroom. Come here. Listen to me.
I want to go downstairs.
I'm not going to do anything. You'll never see me again after this.
well.
Okay? That's it. If you embarrass me in this hotel,
I'm not
stay.
embarrassing you. It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
Honey, don't have a fight with me in the hallway.
All right, Russell, that's
Please.
enough.
I'm not-
That's
What a
she
cruel-
clearly didn't want to watch you in the shower, even though you said you weren't going to do anything.
That didn't sound like Russell.
Kind of sounded like that other dirtbag. What was his name? Harvey Weinstein. How gross is that?
That is so gross.
And now, so what, 20, 30 people have come forward. And amongst
the
all-
list is longer.
And it's huge. I'm like, but this has been going on for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And so now, here's the only thing that I don't like about it. I mean, obviously, it's reprehensible what he has done, but those that are coming out to really go after this guy now, it's because he's out of the business. He can't hire you anymore. And so all of a sudden now you're disgusted by his character, by the assault of women who are merely professionals in that field trying to get a job, and he took advantage of that. That's been going on for 30 years. But now you have some of the elite of Hollywood who he has hired coming out saying, I'm disgusted by what I've had. Really? Now you are? Now you're disgusted? That's what I don't like, David. Just so two-faced. I mean, could you, knowing the power that he had, and he was a very, very powerful guy in Hollywood, people were saying, well, you wouldn't step ahead. You wouldn't say anything. But that's the call you're talking about. So if you wouldn't say anything then how do you say anything afterwards? That's my problem. But the degradation in that is just brutal. I'm going to take a shower. Why don't you have a glass of wine and watch me? Oh, by the way, I'm really fat. I'm really grossly fat. I'm balding. I have a beard. My face looks like people have been running over it with the tractor.
Yep.
And but you enjoy yourself because it'll be just so delightful, like a very erotic. I have some Avon soaps. Sometimes I make little shapes on my chest, my gross Ernest Borgnine breasty chest. But you just have, I got a nice Chardonnay for you. How about that? I'm an idiot. Like, seriously.
Just gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Russell, is that? He's going, Chardonnay. Yeah.
We just become best friends? Yep.
Yeah.
You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
Yeah.
It's time!
Like what he said to me, by the way, you can have all the Ryan Ginger you want, Mike. I'm going to hire you to be the lead in my new film. You got to watch me shower. Is it Crown Royal? Brutal. He said he's having a bad week, and now he has to go get some help. No, you got caught. There's a difference. He's finished. Join us tomorrow. Some pretty cool announcements because we like to make announcements on the show. Keep subscribing to the YouTube channel. We like that as well. Also, I think we've got someone really important coming up on Thursday, and maybe even bigger news the following week. Biggest news. Love that.